Love tries to hide. In fact, the scripture says that love covers a multitude of sins, right? So couples get married because of money. Many do. And many get divorced because of money. It seems like it is the root of either getting married or getting divorced. And sometimes they even betray each other over money. So, but the reality is that money is not the real problem. The real problem is values, your values, her values, how you value relationships, how you value money. Today, we're going to be talking about money, vision, and purpose, the three forces that build marriage or tear it down, right here on the Eric Frazier Show. Welcome to the Eric Frazier Show, where we talk about faith, family, and finance. And today, folks, we're going to be talking about family. That's so important, right? It really is. And why do we work? Why do we get up in the morning? Why do we live? I mean, most of us, we're living for something. We're doing something for something. And for me, it always has been for family, just being a great provider, trying to be a great husband, and you know, having a great marriage. And let me tell you something, after 44 years, it'll be on December 19th at 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I can tell you the marriage is work. It doesn't just happen, it is work. And it doesn't happen, naturally. You got to work. It's like, staying healthy and strong doesn't just happen naturally. You've got to eat right, you got to exercise. And so the same thing applies to marriage. And so we're going to be talking about marriage today. And this is part 4 of a series that I have been doing with my good friend and co-host Henry Cascio. And today's topic is about mission or about money, vision, and purpose. And money, vision, and purpose as a result of, being married. You really need to have an understanding of money. You need to have a vision. You need to be clear on your purpose as a couple. And so, as I stated, Henry Cascio has been with me on this journey. I mean, this is segment or series number 4 on marriage. And he's been married for 22 years himself, has incredible family, wife, and his lived experience has been absolutely critical in our discussions and his insight. And I'm glad to have you back, Henry, for number 4.
Hey, thank you, Eric. Always a blessing and a pleasure to be here with you. You know, as you know, every day, right, I grow into my marriage. There's something that I realize, right, that you don't drift into a great marriage, right? Nothing great, just drift into it, right? You have to build it, right? But let me explain something that helped me, right, in the Bible. If we go back to the Genesis, there's something that says that God didn't cause anything to grow until there was someone there to manage it, right?
Mm.
And that principle hasn't changed, but it changed me. It changed my life, right? Not,
Wow.
yeah.
Henry,
Nothing.
man, see, that's why I'm so glad you're here, man. That was a serious nugget you just dropped right there. I want you to say that again before I do a recap of what we talked about last week. But man, say that one more time.
Yeah, I mean, Genesis is my favorite book in the Bible, right? I always go back to it. So when we go back to Genesis, uh, God didn't cause anything to grow until there was someone there to manage it, right? And that principle, it will never change, right? It'll always be like that. So, but it changed my life, right? Nothing in our lives, not our finances, not our spiritual walk, and definitely not our marriage grows on autopilot, right? It grows because we steward it, right? Biblically, that's a very important word. We have to steward everything we do. So we got to tend to it, right? We got to nurture it, but with intention. What's your intention, right? You want to have a great marriage? Then put all your intention on that, right? After 22 years of marriage, I can say this with confidence that my marriage, I seen it healthy. I seen it the other way around. But when it's healthy, it took work, it took love, it took compassion, right? It took understanding, it took communication. So forgiveness, vision, and a whole lot of other grace. And That's why I love these conversations, right? Because every time I come here, it's like, wow, you know what? That hit me. That hit me. I got to go back and fix that, right? So I'm excited for today because when couples learn to manage the areas God entrusted them to, right? Like money, vision, purpose, your marriage, right? It's great for everyone to learn this stuff, and we learn it from Him. That's the source.
Amen to that, Henry. And folks, as you can see, this is why I am so happy to be partnered up with Henry on this great discussion. He's always dropping some serious nuggets, and we're just getting started here. In fact, let me uh, maybe review what we did in part three. And if you haven't been keeping up, I mean, please go back. Part one, part two, part three. Go back and check it out and see what we have been talking about that's led us to part four today, and that is money, vision, and purpose for your marriage. And so, Henry, again, thank you so much for, being with us today and being with me on this whole series. So, in the last segment, our part three, we talked about respect and humility. And I have to tell you, man, that was a very challenging discussion for me to really look at how I'm showing up every day in my marriage. Am I respecting her? Am I speaking respectfully to her? Am I humble? Do I think I know it all and behave that way? And so we talked about speaking the truth in love, honoring one another, what that means, managing ego, oh my goodness, and restoring kindness, just being kind to one another. And I have to tell you, if we're not really focused on that, if we're not just managing our emotions and managing our time and just and managing our relationships, it's so easy to get off track in those areas. You find yourself saying things you don't really mean, behaving ways you never intended to behave that way. You find yourself just doing things and saying things that are not really representative of who you really are, especially in your marriage, all because you're not managing to it. And Henry, I tell you, what you said at the beginning of this is going to, I think we're going to find that theme throughout this whole discussion in this series, and that it's all about, if you want your marriage to grow, if you want your marriage to be successful, you got to truly manage it. And man, thank you for setting the tone for today's discussion.
Yeah, you're welcome, Eric. But if you talk about last segment, I think it's number three, right? We talked about something that is key, right? Communication and the dangers of becoming silence in the marriage. But communication is, oh yeah, you got to communicate. No, you got to speak the truth, but you got to do it in a way. You got to do it in love, compassion, right? And that's really matters. It matters more than truth. That is biblical, right? Everything, there's nothing above love, right? Because the wrong tone, you can be speaking truth, but the wrong tone can either build or the right tone can build safety, or the wrong tone will destroy it, right?
Right.
And silence, what does silence do? Right? It removes safety altogether, right? There's no communication. Everything stops. The connection is gone. And you know what? We're going in my Bible studies. I have a Bible studies on Tuesdays. We're going through the book of Job. Is it Job? Job?
Yeah, Job, yes.
Job,
I
yeah.
know like in Spanish,
It's Job.
the J.
Yeah, yeah. And we just study Job 8, right? And you see something very interesting. His friend is called Bildad. You know, he actually says things that are biblically to him, but he says it in a tone that are very short, very not in love, very like without any regards of what Job is going through, right?
Mm,
So without compassion, right? He doesn't understand what Job is going through. And that's part of the communication that we need to understand. Because if
yes.
we're just going to speak truth without compassion, without love, it's going to sound really harsh, right? So if it's true, but it's delivered with zero love, how does that benefit your spouse, you, or your marriage or anything, right?
Right.
So it's very interesting that, as we were talking about that, I was going through Job and I said, oh, wow, this is a great example when someone speaks truth without love and compassion. A great
Henry,
book.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, in going to my review, I completely overlooked that. And that was a critical part of our discussion because it does, I mean, I don't know of a single couple where communication is not an issue, an ongoing struggle and issue. Either how you're communicating or not communicating, silence or communicating without empathy, without compassion. And I don't think, I mean, have you ever, I don't think I've met a married person who hasn't asked this question to their spouse, and that is, why are you talking to me that way? What is wrong? Why are you acting that way? Why are you looking at me that way? What is going on? Right? I don't, and listen, if you're married and you have not asked your spouse that question, then I'm going to just say you're not married. You guys are maybe living together, you're friends or something like that. You know, you're not married. Am I right, Henry?
That is true, and and why did we get to that point, right? I mean, when you see them talking to somebody else and they're so nice, and because there's something there that there's an issue there that hasn't been talked about, right? It hasn't
Right.
been communicated right, or someone has not listened to that issue, and it's just a reaction to that issue, right? Is that is not the problem itself, it's what happens when the issue is still there, it hasn't been addressed, and it's usually because communication hasn't been clear, right? Or one doesn't even want to take the time to understand it. So if you're unwilling to hear it, right, how can you heal what you won't talk about?
Mm-mm-mm. You can't.
Yeah.
You absolutely can't. Wow, you know what? We're gonna if we keep going on this, we're gonna do segment three all over again. So let's move to segment four here, or part four here, and that's money, purpose, and vision, or money, vision, and purpose. And folks, we're looking at it from three different vantage points. You know, one is money, and taken from Proverbs 21, verse 5. Proverbs 21, verse 5. A vision from First Timothy 6 and 10, and purpose, Habakkuk 2 and 2. And I'm going to, tackle the first one here, money. And, what is money really, right? We need to understand what money is. Uh, Proverbs 21, verse 5, I'm reading from the New International Version. It says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. 1 Timothy 6:10 says, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, and pierce themselves with many griefs. So we are we understand that money is a very, very important, aspect of living. You can't really function in this society or in this world without having it. You need money to buy bread, to put gas in your car, to have clothes, to provide health care, to just to live. And so it is essential. Money, though, is not just currency. It's not just currency needed to live. Money is also reflecting our values, how we spend the money, how we earn the money. It's reflecting our values. It's reflecting our fears. It's reflecting what our priorities are. It's reflecting our discipline and, number one, our stewardship. Henry's point earlier today, nothing grows without being managed. And God knew that from the foundation of the world, that he put this beautiful earth together and all these incredible things. And he formed man and woman after making it all, because it can't really function on its own. Nothing's going to grow without it being managed. And we have so many scriptures that talk about being good stewards of what God has blessed us with, and a marriage is one of those things. So people don't fight over money, really. They fight over what money represents to them. You know, most people see money as a form of security. I know that I do. You know, as a personal financial coach, I'm always instructing my clients that you've got to make saving money and building an emergency fund your number one priority. That's got before you start buying a bunch of cars and stuff and going on vacation, you know, even getting a mortgage, you got to save some money. And this money is your security in case something happens. Because guess what? Life happens every single day to people. Sometimes the things that happen are completely out of the view, out of the blue, and sometimes we create circumstances, we create a series of events that lead to you know, financial challenges, and we need to have the reserves and the money to meet those challenges. For other people, money represents control. And, you know, if you have enough money, you know, you really are in control of your destiny. You know, you are the master of your own ship. You know, when you have enough money, you only do what you want to do. You don't do what others will ask you to do or maybe make you to do because you're dependent upon them for money and for living. So when you have enough of it, you have control. And many people love that idea of just being in control of their time, of their life, because they have enough money. But the biggest one is freedom. I mean, depending on where you're at with how you're managing your wealth, it can bring a kind of freedom that says, I mean, you can respond two ways to this freedom. Like, number one, it would be, you know, I have the freedom just to live my best life and to do all the things that I've ever wanted to do and to find and to make sure that all my time is all about what makes me happy and feel good. And the other aspect of freedom is that, hey, I don't care what you think, what you believe. I don't care what you need. I don't care. It's the freedom that says, I don't care about anything else or anybody else but myself. And I don't have to care because I don't need you. I don't need you at all because I have enough money. I have all that I need. And so people respond to money in different ways because of how or what it represents. And so again, people don't fight over money, they fight over what it represents. And so when couples get married for financial security and the money goes, well, divorce happens. You know, when the finances collapse, then the marriage collapse. Or when there's not enough money, they began to look for resources for other individuals who have money, and they began to betray their spouses uh, over money. So it's not black and white. There are a lot of nuances there that lead to these kinds of events, but it's happening. In fact, according to national studies by the Institute for Divorce Financial Analysis and the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, money is consistently one of the top three causes of divorce in the United States. And so these reports found that 22% of divorces cite money issues as the primary concern. 37% of couples say debt creates marital tension. Uh, Couples who argue about money once a week are 30% more likely to divorce. And then financial infidelity. And financial infidelity, what is that? Secret accounts, hiding, spending. You know, that occurs in one of three marriages, according to this study. And again, this study was done in 2022. And it's really kind of shocking. Maybe not, depending on, you know, who you know is married. We all know people who are married or are divorced and remarried. And so maybe your friends have confided in you that have been divorced, that these were some of the issues that affected their divorce or their relationship. the main point here is that it's rarely about the actual dollar, the money. It's really about misaligned values and secrets and ego and fear. All these things are the pillars, if you will, to divorce. And all of them are driven from how people look at money, view money, acquire money, retain money, and it is simply a reflection of their values and how they see the world and how they see relationships. Henry, in your experience, why does money, create such division in a marriage and lead to this kind of activity?
Well, I believe the money is really a symptom, right? It's not actually the problem. Because when couples say we're fighting because of money, when you dug deep into that, it often reveals the truth, right? Because money touches a lot of things for different people, right? Security, dreams, stress, priorities. That's how, money reflects that. But is the money really the problem? I don't know. I think it's the way people looked at money, right? The Bible says where your treasures is, right? There your heart will also be, right? So when you bring two hearts together, right? Two backgrounds, two separate backgrounds, uh, two people with different habits, two people with different fears, right? Two people with different expectations, and you put money in the middle of that, you know, whatever's in those hearts is going to definitely surface, right? So in my opinion, money isn't the problem. Money is just magnifies, it magnifies either a value that is not there or is there, right? It magnifies a discipline that should be there or is not there. It could magnify a fear, right? Like I say, security, or it could magnify really bad habits, spending habits, or even how mature you are, right? So it comes down to really understand how the other person sees money, right? So couples need to talk about money because money becomes the place where something that is really bothering them grows. And if they don't talk about it, it becomes a secret, right? And whenever secrets grow, man, the division will follow. And that division will keep going up. Because like you said, we need money for everything, but money is not the problem. So because they never build or they never share understanding, right, of what money is. Probably they never talked about it, right? To maybe to my wife, money means security, right? But to me, it doesn't mean security. To me, it means freedom, right? So
Mhm.
have we really talked about that? How she sees money and how I see it? We have, but do we really understand each other, right? Maybe she wants to save more, right? And I'm thinking, why am I going to save? I need to invest it, right? So I save money to invest. I don't save money to have security. My security is on God, right? On how I live my life is different. But we need money, yes. So if you never invest your money, you just save it, save it, save it, money depreciates. So if those topics are not talked about, if I never talk to my wife about why every time we have a bunch of money, I go and buy another property, she was like, hey, you know what? We had this. That was my security. I felt secure. Now, we went down to zero. Yeah, but we acquired another property, right? So those are the things that you really need to understand how your spouse sees money, what it money means to her, and why we do the things we do. If it's not talked about, it's going to be an issue. And I remember we had that issue before. When I first started buying property, she would get so worried, right? She would get like, how are we going to do this? It was funny because I stopped telling her, I'm going to buy another property. I just bought it.
Wow.
But I understood something that she was afraid of, and she grew up differently with money. How she
Mm.
grew up with money was different than me, right? So I saw a lot of people, a lot of my friends were older than me, right? I saw how they spend their money. I've been blessed with good mentors since I was younger. I saw they had businesses. I saw they invest money. Yeah, they spend money. A lot of them spend money. But when I saw them spend money the wrong way, I also looked at it. I said, okay, that money was wasteful, right? I like it when he does this with his money. I like it when he invests here, there. So when I got together with my wife, we needed to understand each other's point of view as money. And the way I see money is just a tool, a tool that has multiple facets, right? Okay, it can serve you to invest, but it also serves you to pay all your bills. And if you become with your spouse, you come together into what understanding what money is and how we're using it and why is this is a better tool, this is a better way to use it. I think it will solve a lot of the problems. And then we would understand that, the issue wasn't that there was no money in the savings account. The issue was that she felt that was security, and I felt like money just it will find a way to go away if we don't invest it. So until we understood each other, you know, now we live a better life and we understand why money is better used in certain ways.
So, Henry, your spouse is now on board with, investing money to continue to enjoy the freedom and as well as the security that comes with that. But there was a point where she didn't get it. It made her worried about investing in real estate and how we're going to handle the payment. What if they don't pay the rent? I've heard all these fear concerns, but you did it anyway. Now, looking back on that, was that the right move?
I believe so because I understood she had fear. And you know what? It wasn't just my wife. I have my parents, I have people that love me. They came to me, oh, what if they don't pay? How you gonna do this? How you gonna do? I said, you know what? I don't want to hear none of your fear. I know who I trust in, and I know that I'm not doing anything wrong. I know I'm doing it the legit way. I know the money doesn't serve me sitting there, right? Because when I had money when I was younger, I was saving money. Money always finds a way to get spent. So I don't want to spend money. I want to invest it, right?
Right.
Because when you invest, the rewards you reap later, and that I learned that and I knew that she didn't have that in her. So I went through it to teach her, right? So I said,
Mhm.
you know what? I'm going to do it so she can see it because most people, they won't understand it until they go through it, right?
Right.
And it's not like after I said, hey, I told you so. No, I never said that, right? I never said that. I just I just went out and did prove a point that I knew that money was better invested than being saved. Like just to give you a little example, right? I bought properties for $35,000 many years ago, and now they're worth 250, 300,000. So if I would have saved that money, right, for security, put it in a savings account, what would I have? Probably nothing. It would have found a way to go out somewhere. We would have taken a trip, something would have happened, the money would have been gone, right?
No, you're absolutely right. That's the only way to grow your wealth, and and to leverage your income to tie your income to an asset and what savings you have to an asset that will appreciate at a much faster rate because it's simply more. That's the amazing thing about real estate, right? When you buy real estate, you can buy a $500,000 house with only, 50,000, 10%, or FHA, 3.5%. What is that? 17,005. So the amount of money you need to control an asset, is not very much compared to what you make once you have control of that asset. I mean, real estate in the last 15 years, really since 2008, here we are 20 almost 20 years later, over 20 years later. Real estate has been averaging in the double digits. I mean, 10 to 12% a year. Imagine that. I mean, that's doubling. Your home is doubling in 7 to 10 years in value, and we've seen that with people, and they acquired that asset with maybe at the most 10% of what the asset is worth. And so but along with acquiring that asset, which is where your wife came into play, is a payment and, the concern that the renter may not make the payment. And this fear is real. But somebody has to be fearless and take the lead here. And this really goes back, Henry, to something we were talking about, I think, in segment one. You know, Marriage is not about, who makes the final decision, who's the lead. It's a 51-49 relationship. I mean, when people start talking about who the head is and who's going to make all decisions, it becomes oversimplified, really, as to what the role is in a relationship is between a husband and wife. The reality is that we all bring unique strengths and abilities and aptitude to the marriage. And, in this particular area, your experience and your knowledge was simply greater than your wife's experience. And so this is where having that submitting to one another, respecting one another's individual gifts and talents, and allow them to their talents and their gifts to flourish and to grow. And so I take my hat off to your wife to, you know, one, she had the relationship with you to be able to express her fears and concerns because that's what you want. But she also had the trust in you to say, okay, Henry, I'm concerned about this, but I trust you, and I don't want to hear about it. And so you don't even tell her about it. You just do because at the end of the day, a husband who loves his wife and his children is always going to strive to do the right thing for their family. And it may not always be the case. And what a husband might perceive to be the right thing, or the spouse might perceive to be the right thing, may end up not achieving the goals that, were intended. But nevertheless, you keep going, and it is the trust that you have in each other about money that allows the next opportunity to come to pass. Henry, did any of these deals that you had go south where she said I told you so?
You know what? I've been blessed with real estate. I have never lost money in real estate. And that's a true
Wow.
statement, right? And, maybe part of it was because of my commitment to it, but also my trust in God. I always tell my wife, you know what? If we do things right, we trust in God. We put in this. There was something that was put in me. I always knew I was going to be involved with real estate. I just never knew how. But I was thinking, who put that in me? Right? You know, so I trusted that intuition or whatever you call it, that was inside of me, right? And when I start communicating that to her, you know, what I think about money, how money should be with honesty and without shame, right? You know, those things become very my wife started becoming understanding. Okay, you know what? If you have that dream, you always wanted to do that, just don't tell me about it. Right. And that's what I did. And when couples get together and they're in the same financially plan, if they, like you said, right, if she starts trusting you, okay, that's your lane, about real estate, that's your thing, go ahead and do it, right? Something beautiful happens because money is not a threat anymore. She didn't feel like it was
Right.
it was threatening her security, right? Now money really became a tool, right? And a tool that, for our future stability, right? To be generous, right? To have peace in the home because we're building something. We're building a future, right? So I always encourage couples, don't wait until the fight. Talk about your finances. Talk now. Build a plan, but execute it. Make it happen, right? Because it could have
Right.
gone the wrong way, right? I could have given up in the middle of it and it would have been disastrous, right? But don't give up. Trust that you're gonna do things right and trust in God, right? And when you do things with trust and you educate yourself on what you're doing, you know, everything should work out. Work hard, be smart, and go for it. So you got to you got to take that. You can't just leave money hanging there. It's not going to grow.
Right. Well, as you said in the beginning, Henry, everything that grows grows because of management, right? And that's biblical. That's from the foundation of the world. We are all stewards of what God has blessed us with, and we have to be good managers of what He has blessed us with. A couple of important points that you have brought up. From your experiences, one, you had mentors, you had people who were doing it, and you were able to learn from them and observe them. And that's so important to have mentors and other people of like mind that are doing the things you want to do, to be able to talk to and get the wisdom and the guidance that you may not have. That also, if there's another party involved, that probably does add more confidence to your spouse when you're making big decisions. Because here's the reality, your spouse knows what you know. They've been with you for a minute or dating you for a long time, and you finally got married, or you've been married for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. You can't fake it. You can't act like you know everything and that you got it all thought out and laid out. When you know they know you don't know. Now, if you've been studying and practicing or researching on the side without letting her know about it, then shame on you, because that's part of the reasons why there are problems in marriage. And that is a lack of communication, a lack of transparency, a lack of understanding each other's goals and really coming together as one. And it doesn't mean that you lose your identity and you can't achieve what you want to achieve as an individual, but it does mean that you do have an understanding of each other and each other's unique individual goals, and you then work towards a common goal that would benefit the unit, right? The unit and not just the individual. So I think it's important that when you are looking at money and you're dealing with money issues, you bring in an expert, you bring in someone in the marriage to help you work out and come up with a plan that works for you, whether it be buying investment properties or investing in the real estate in the stock market, or establishing a budget or a financial plan, or buying insurance. And these discussions, especially if you lack the knowledge and experience, require someone in the middle, where that can be an advocate towards the common goal, not a defense attorney for one position or another, but an advocate for the common goal. The other thing too that you brought up, maybe this through implication, or this is what I read, and that is your wife's experience probably at home with her family is much different than yours. Some people come from completely different backgrounds. In my case, in my marriage, we grew up poor. So, money was just viewed differently. I had a whole different mindset about money. And I had to change a lot of things about what I understood about money, how money works, how to manage money as I began to earn money and save money. And my wife's background with money was similar, although she did not have the same experience. Her mom was very entrepreneurial. She bought a home as a single mother. I mean, she raised kids on her own. She was very independent. She never relied on anything. And so my wife sees money as independence, and managing it and being, thinking about the future. I have to say, Henry, she probably was far more forward thinking about money than I was, because I didn't have those same experiences. And I think it's also important that couples share their experiences. That you grow up poor. That you not money was always an issue. Finances and challenges at home were always a challenge. Well, you're bringing that to the marriage, and your situation may be different today. Maybe you have a good job, you make a lot of money, you're doing big things, but because of that, that controls how you view money, how you view others who want access to your money. how you view investing in money, and you operate from a position of fear because you know what can happen when you don't have money. I mean, all these things play a big role in how we relate to our spouses, our family history. And so this takes me back to, segment three or part three, where communication about it is so important, talking about it, coming to an understanding. But the other thing, this would be my last point on this, and that is you got to have a plan to address money. And I think number one is no plan will work. No plan will work without full and complete transparency. Your husband or your wife needs to know how you feel about money. What is your belief about money? What is your understanding about money? You need to fully disclose all of your debts, all of your liabilities, all of your bank accounts. You cannot keep secrets. That plan is not going to work. You need to have, weekly or monthly financial check in on each other. You need maybe even full on meetings to discuss money, what's going out, what's coming in, what are our short-term goals, what are our long-term goals. I mean, if you're not having this kind of conversation, I would be willing to say that that's probably the reason why you feel unstable in your marriage right now, and that you may be unintentionally on a path to divorce or separation because there's a complete misunderstanding of uh, of money.
Yeah, Eric, the easiest way to understand vision is, if you really think about it, is the direction of your life, right? Where's your marriage going? Where are you going as a father, as a brother, everything. If you give it a vision, now you have direction. And without that vision, you're going to be in a reacting mode, right? You're going to be waking up to put out fires. You're going to be hoping that everything somehow works out. But when we look at the Bible shows us something totally different, right? That nothing great is built by accident. The Bible says um, to write vision, right, and make it plain, so that he who reads it may run with it, right? And what that means is vision should be clear, can be simple, it has to be written down, but most importantly, it has to be actionable. You have to take action. And we know that it's true for other things, right? It's true for businesses, it's true for ministry, for leadership. So how much more is it true for your marriage, right? Marriage needs a vision because two people, right? If we're going in different directions, what are we doing? We're drifting, right? We're going in different directions. One wants to save, the other one wants to spend, right? One wants to grow spiritually, the other one is, not caring or whatever, right? One sees the future this way, the other one is stuck in today, right? In the present. So those are things that um, those are important things to really understand, so you can plan your vision. So because without it, the marriage becomes a reaction, really. So would you want to be reacting, right? Or would you want to be clear on what you guys are doing? And if you put a vision, a plan together, and something goes wrong, you can change it. Okay, we tried it this way. We still have the same vision, but we know that this way is not going to be. So let's try this one, you know. And go ahead.
So I was going to say, no plan is written in stone. I mean, that's why I love football. You know, they huddle up, they call a play, and the quarterback gets to the front line and he sees, oh, that's not going to work. And they call an audible, right? I mean, so that's working together. That's having you start off with a plan, you see that things aren't working, and so you adjust the plan.
That's right. You said it really good. You're building something together, right? So what are you building? That's the things that you need to ask yourself. Where are we going? What kind of marriage do we want? What do we want to live? What about our children? What education are we going to give them? We're going to do homeschool? Are we going to send them to school? Right? I mean, there's so many things that you can plan for your marriage. So when you answer those questions together, right, you stop living on an accident or like waking up and you don't know what to do. You start living on assignment, basically, because now you have a plan, right? I think that God blesses clarity, right? Every time I've been clear about something, I see the hand of God on it because I have clarity, I act on it. I don't have fear. Fear is gone because I know where I'm going. I know how to do it. There's no fear. Like if you tell me right now, hey, I have this home, we should flip it. I look at it, I'm clear about it. I have no fear about taking over that project, right? So clarity gets rid of your fear. And, I think when you are on the same page with your wife, that's also very important because unity is so important, right? And like we talked about, God will always bless stewardship. You know, a couple aligned with their vision is a couple that is moving in the same direction, right? They're pulling in the same weight, right? And they're going the same route. They're building the same future. But if you never talk about it, if you never plan it, what are you really building? Nothing. You're just living, right?
You're absolutely right, Henry. And what a great transition here. We went from talking about money and the primary solution to dealing with money is complete transparency, right? And if you're going to be transparent about, who you are, what you believe about money, what you have, what you want to do, what you think we should do, a husband and wife having a conversation, that leads to a united vision. And when you have it written down, what it is you want to achieve, you want to do together, it will come to pass. And it's something, as you've mentioned, great about not reacting every day when there is no plan, reacting to everything because there's no plan of actually how we're moving together as a couple or as a married couple. You cited Habakkuk 2 verse 2 in the New International Version. It says, "Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it." The reality is that you can't really do anything in life without a plan. Yeah, I mean, if you just spend your life reacting to every new idea and every shiny thing you see, you will never accomplish anything. You have to have a plan. You have to have a way, a path forward for your life, for your marriage, for your wife, for yourself. You have to have a plan. And most people understand that. They just don't apply it to their marriage. They apply it to their job. They apply it to their business. They apply it maybe to their children if they have children. People have a plan for their child to become a doctor or become a lawyer, and they put them in special schools and they invest in education. They have a plan for their health, and so they start a diet and they start eating right and exercising. I mean, interesting. Planning our lives is not a foreign concept. It's just that do we actually put forth the same effort, Henry, in planning our life with our wife, our spouse? It's something that is probably foundationally the reasons why marriages get on the wrong path, straight to divorce court because they don't really know each other, understand each other. They don't agree on how they can move forward. They have not found a way for compromises on the goals that they have for each other. And as a result of that, their life is just a routine. That's all it is. They get up, brush their teeth, have breakfast, go to work, come home, go to sleep, get up, go back. No communication, no real plans. And thus, lack of planning, the lack of having a vision leads to resentment and dissatisfaction about each other. And it really takes you straight to that path of divorce or separation because you're no longer really operating as one.
That's right. When there's no vision, really, marriage becomes a maintenance, right? You gotta start, okay, I gotta put this fire out, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. But when there's vision, right, it creates momentum to accomplish that goal, whatever that, whatever that vision you put it together, you know, and that's the beauty of vision, right? That it gives you um, a meaning to the sacrifice you're going to make because it's going to take time, work. It's going to take a lot from you when you have a vision, right? It's not, okay, we wrote the plan, we're done, right? So you got to become disciplined. But what gives that discipline power is that purpose. Now you have purpose. And if you wake up with purpose, you're like, man, I got to do this. Why? Because I know where I'm going. I have that goal and that's where I'm going. So it also gives you motivation, right? To keep going, to grow. I mean, why wouldn't you want to grow with your spouse? Why wouldn't you want to do something with her? Why wouldn't you want to put a plan that will make you a great marriage, right? A great life so your kids can see that, and you give society better people, better kids, right? Because that's important. So instead of living day to day, have a vision, make a plan, right? And, you know, just ask God to help you build it and trust that you will as long as you work on it. But be clear.
Yeah, and that clarity comes with, having a real plan written down, a plan that you're visiting, once a quarter, once a month, every year. Couples need to write down. And here's the strategy for this. Number one, have shared goals. Share goals. If you can agree on it, that's what you should do. If you can't agree, then you need to give each other space and opportunities to find a path to agreement of some type of plan within the context of what you want to do. Not just lording over, claiming authority over someone and say, this is the way it's going to happen, and it's either my way or the highway. That just never works. You have to find common ground. And you have to agree on what are non-negotiables. Like, a non-negotiable would be for maybe a couple say, "Hey, we are not going to invest in crypto." That might be a non-negotiable. Or we're not going to, lend money to this person in our family. I mean, because again, when you're thinking about finances and money, there's so many things that can come at you that can impact the marriage. And that's ultimately what you're trying to do is prevent something like that from happening by having a shared plan. So your dreams, your priorities, your family values, all these things need to be reviewed every year or at a minimum every year so that you can walk together as one. And when you're walking together as one, I think what you said there, Henry, about purpose really comes to fruition. I mean, you understand why you're together. You understand who you are as a couple. You understand what you want to accomplish. What is your spiritual purpose? And that is really to reflect God's love and unity. I mean, that was the purpose of God, creating Adam and Eve and everything he made, he said it was good. And so it is a reflection of the goodness of God. And so when we are operating in unity and love and forgiveness and partnerships, we can only but give God all the credit and all the glory. And then there's the emotional purpose. We are emotional beings. We need each other. We need companionship. We need encouragement. We need intimacy. We need love. I mean, God is love. That's what the scriptures say. And he is in us. We are the manifestation of him. His breath is our breath. His life is our life. Without him, we're nothing. And the scriptures say that God is love. And so that encouragement, that intimacy, that companionship, that partnership, that love. And then lastly, the functional purpose. I mean, two heads are better than one. Let me tell you something. I mean, two heads are better than one. Working together, building something together as a family, building a legacy, supporting our children, having a shared mission as a family as well as a couple. I mean, this is where, you see as it all comes to pass and fruition, you see the goodness of God, the grace of God. When you build a family and you create a legacy and just something that will outlast you. From a personal standpoint, Henry, every time I get together with my girls and my son-in-laws and my grandchildren, and I look at Ruby and I said, look at what we have created. And I'm amazed. I'm amazed at the goodness of God. And I think, if anything, having that purpose and having those values is what keeps marriages together, so that they can enjoy the fruits of their faith and of their labor and what they have built together. That's why divorce is such a terrible thing. You just look at all that has been invested emotionally, financially, spiritually, and to see it all go away because of irreconcilable differences. You can't agree. I believe that it's more about you than it is about the individual. It's you, the individual, as opposed to you, the couple. It's more about you, the individual, and your relationship with God and your understanding of His Word and your willingness to be humble and to submit to the Word of God to be your guide and for the Word of God to be His guide. And until two people can get it right vertically in their relationship with God, they're going to have these kinds of struggle of unforgiveness and not trusting each other and not being willing to find compromise and just thinking that tension and fighting is normal. These things are not normal, not for a household who is allowing Christ to be the center of the marriage.
You know, when we talk about purpose, I think we really need to understand the purpose always comes before creation. So if you want to create a great marriage, you got to give it purpose, right? If you look at the Bible, God never created anything without first defining why it exists. So a purpose should precede existence. So if you're not married yet, right? Think about the purpose of you getting married. If you're married, you want to make it great, give it purpose, right? Um, everybody, we all created for a reason, right? We all have a purpose. Your spouse was created for a reason. She has a purpose. Your marriage is there for a purpose. So if you want to really build a great marriage, we absolutely need purpose. Why? Because behind every decision, right? Every sacrifice, because it's going to take a lot of sacrifice, it's going to take a lot of commitment, right? We make in that relationship, you need to understand your purpose, right? Because your purpose is really the foundation of that fulfillment. Whatever you want to go, that is the foundation. If you don't have that clear, you're going to drift. You're not going to do it. You're not going to want to do it. So I think fulfillment comes when you live according uh, to the reasons or the purpose that God made you, right? And it's the same in marriage. If you have that marriage and you want it to grow, you want it to be great, the purpose needs to be there. Because without it, it becomes what, a routine, right? And then frustration comes. And then with frustration, you're going to see a lot of distance. And distance is complete disconnection. And we don't want to get there. But a marriage that has a purpose, you can see that they're aligned. And that's very important because it's intentional now. They have a mission. They're driven towards that. Then they will not just be surviving. Why would you want to live just to survive? You want to live to build something meaningful and you want to do it together. Why wouldn't you want to do it with your wife? That's the woman you chose to marry or the man you chose to marry, right? So give it purpose, give it clear. And when things happen that you feel like you need to sacrifice to acquire it, to get to that purpose, you will see that the meaningful behind it. There's meaning behind it, and you won't give up. So when your
Uh,
purpose is clear, forgiveness becomes easier too.
great point there. When your purpose is clear, when you really know your purpose in your marriage, forgiveness becomes very easy. And if you have maybe forgotten what your purpose is, or you've lost sight of your purpose, you think it's really easy to get back on purpose. Sometimes that happens, right? It's like traveling. When you are traveling someplace and you get off you get off the plan, the travel plan. You maybe miss a turn or something. You look at where you're at, you examine where you're at, where you are in your map, whether it be online. Back in the day, we used to have actual maps. Now everything's online, but you figure out where you are, and if you don't know, you ask the question, how do you get there? Hey, I missed, I'm trying to get here. How do I get back on track? And sometimes you have to turn around, right? And go back before you can get back onto the on-ramp and go in the right direction. And in marriage, I think that sometimes we have to kind of reset when we feel like we're not clear on our purpose and the relationship is not what it should be. We have to do some deep introspection and really ask this question: what am I doing that I need to stop doing? Or what am I not doing that I need to start doing? And then we ask, why did I marry you? I mean, every spouse should go through this exercise and just list all the reasons why you got married. What was it about Henry? What was it about, Ruby? What was it about your spouse that made them say, I do, I do? And do you still choose them today? And if you still choose them today, here you are, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, in my case, 44 years later, do you still choose your spouse today for the same reasons that you chose them on the day you got married? And does your mission, what you're trying to achieve, your purpose, does it really still matter to you? Does it matter to you today as it mattered to you back then? I mean, these are can be some difficult questions. And if they are very, very difficult, that just shows there's some serious issues and trauma and maybe discussions that need to be addressed, and you may need help. You may need to have an advocate, another party in that discussion, a counselor, or someone to help you navigate through the difficult discussions, because sometimes it's just difficult um, to control emotions and have the discussions that you need to have, and help is needed. And then, sometimes it can be done with just a husband and wife praying before you begin and just allowing each other to be the space for each other to express how they feel. And I think just being allowed to express how you feel goes a long way towards the other person listening to how you feel, right? And it's really, it comes down to really each of you understanding and learning and trying to get understanding that there's a whole lot of misunderstanding about intentions and words and actions. But with that understanding, Henry, comes forgiveness. And it's only coming to forgiveness because you are finally realizing what your purpose is. And purpose really allows you to forgive, to forget, to love, to be the kind of person that you are in the marriage you want to be in your marriage, and to show up that way.
Yeah, when the purpose is clear, you can see the money is not the problem. You can see the relationship starts serving the mission. So it's a total different marriage because now you're pulling together in the same direction, right? You're not just two people that live together anymore. So when you and your partner, are together by God you were put together to accomplish something, right? And if you understand that purpose, only until you understand that purpose, it's where all of this, everything that we're talking about will make sense, right? Because purpose does change everything, right? Um, when the couple really understand the purpose, I say that the marriage is not just functioning, but it will get to strive really to get to another level. It's really that simple, right? Write it down, understand your purpose, why you're together, and take action.
Henry, this has been a great discussion and on topics that I am confident that are not coming up in discussions between husbands and wives. I can tell you it's not in mine. In fact, my anniversary is coming up on the 19th of December, folks, and at 11 o'clock. And I'm going to ask my wife, why did you marry me? And would you still marry me today? I'm going to ask her that. What is our mission today? The kids are gone and they're on their own. We're empty nesters. It's just the two of us. What has changed? Where are we today compared to where we were then? And would you still marry me today? And if so, why? And if not, why? And if not, why? I said, what do I need to change? What do I need to stop? What do I need to do? Because I am not trying to get divorced or to, be looking for a new relationship. I don't think anybody is. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to get divorced. It doesn't happen overnight. Nobody wakes up or, gets married to be miserable their entire life. That doesn't happen overnight. None of these things happen overnight, Henry. They don't. So we really need to look at just how we're showing up every day and understand that number one, money does reveal our values, what we really believe about people, places, things, life in general. Vision gives us the direction and the clarity we need to live our best life as a husband or a wife or a spouse and our children. And our purpose gives us that meaning that really gets us up in the morning. What is my purpose? I want to be a great dad, or a great husband, or a great wife. I want to be a leader in my family. I want to be a spiritual leader. What is getting me up in the morning? And ultimately I want my life and my actions to glorify God in every way. The Purpose Driven Life, Rick Warren. I love that book. And it really, for me, purpose really speaks to that. That's why we exist to glorify God. And marriage is always going to have its differences, its challenges. But the question is are you willing to reconcile those when they come up? Are you going to let challenges and disappointments, because we will disappoint each other, we will have challenges. Are you going to let those incidences that will pass with, I mean, it's one thing about every problem, it passes. Every situation, it passes. But will you allow it to define you? Will your spouse allow it to define you? Will you allow it to define your spouse? And I believe that when we are aligned on mission and purpose and vision and money and a shared vision, especially, then there won't be any irreconcilable differences. There won't be any separations or divorce because you can come together because you know intimately, especially as a child of God, that you operate in the grace of God who loves you unconditionally. Why can't you love your spouse the same way?
That's right. And I think you touch on this. A lot of us, a lot of couples, right? Why do we struggle? A lot of us, it's not because we don't love each other, right? But it's because we have never really sat down to get unified on this, what we're talking about, right? We never sat down and talk about spiritually, financially, emotionally. We never create a shared vision, right? We don't share goals, right? So we have a why we still together, right? why this marriage still in existence? What's the purpose? You know, so when you bring those things together, especially if you bring God into those conversations, into your money, your vision, your purpose, everything we spoke about, everything in that marriage it is going to change, right? The communication will get easier because now you talked about it, you're getting in the same page. Decisions are going to be a lot clearer, and the home becomes a place, of peace, instead of that tension, right? That sometimes couples feel. So my encouragement today is really simple. Don't drift through your marriage, build it. Talk about your finances, write your vision, revisit your purpose. Because when you do those things and you put God in the middle of it, incredible things will happen to the two of you, right? So don't fall apart. A unified marriage is a powerful marriage.
Amen to that. Henry, if it's going to grow and prosper, it's got to be managed. And I think that is the overriding theme of today's show and segment. And I certainly hope that everyone watching or listening has been blessed by it. Money, well, vision and purpose. Marriages are going to always have some challenges, but if you can come together in those three things, and you can definitely keep your relationship with God, your relationship in line and understanding that you're operating under the providence of God. Everything you have, He has given to you. Everything that you will do, He will make happen for you. Everything that your wife is manna from heaven, your children is manna from heaven. God is the provider of everything we have, and He has given us unconditional love, unforgiven. I mean, there's no unforgiveness in the grace of God and the kingdom of God. And we are children of the King in the kingdom, in relationships. Why can't we be the same way with one another? God has God in the same way that God has his relationship with us. Thank you for watching today, the Eric Frazier Show, where we talk about faith, family, and finance. And for those of you who are missing this live discussion, you could be in it every single day. We are recording live from 10 to about 12 o'clock, sometimes 10 to 11, but for sure we're starting at 10. Join the conversation on the various topics that we cover here on the Power Is Now TV network, and you can find that at thepowerisnow.com. So thank you for watching the Eric Frazier Show. If you want to watch other episodes of the Eric Frazier Show, you can find them on the Power Is Now TV. Download our TV app. You can go to the ericfrazier.com website and find the Eric Frazier Show there as well, in addition to Faith, Family, and Finance magazine, where we write even more about these important topics as relates to life, faith, family, and finance. Thank you for watching. Remember, we are at our best and we maximize our success when we act now. The power really is now, folks, to change your life, improve your marriage, to live your best life. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.
The Power Is Now magazines are the leading resource for real estate agents, mortgage bankers, entrepreneurs, and small home ownership businesses, providing leaders with business strategy information, resources and tools through PIN, real estate, programming guide magazines. Stay up to the minute with real estate news and information from industry experts. ThePowerisNow.com. ThePowerisNow.com.